Hi everyone, I hope you are all doing really well and staying safe. For today's midweek art session, what we are going to be doing is creating a value chart and learning a little bit about that. So when we talk about value in art, what we basically mean is how light or how dark something is. So every image, every drawing is made up of lots of different light and dark values. So we can see in this drawing we've got some really dark tones, some mid-tones and some light tones. So they're different values of tonality, okay? So we're going to be having a go at practicing that in the chart. So it's basically moving from light, so from white to dark to black, adding different amounts of pressure using our pencil. Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking at today. So all you're going to need is a piece of paper, a pencil, and potentially a ruler if you want it to draw the chart. So when you've got all those things gathered, let's make a start. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need to do is just draw out your value chart. So for this example, we're going to be doing a 6 value chart. So start by just drawing a rectangle. I've actually just drawn around my ruler, and then divide your rectangle into 6 squares. And we're going to just number those 1 to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So these are going to be our lightest, so 1 and 2s are going to be our lightest tones, 3 and 4 are mid tones, and 5 and 6 are our dark tones. So I'm also just going to label those on there as well. So we've got our light, mid tones, okay, so we've got our light tones, our mid tones, and our dark tones. So number 1 is actually just going to be completely white, okay? So that's a really important thing to remember, is that when we're looking at a tonal drawing, there are some sections in it that are always just completely white. So that's the lightest shade. Okay, so that's going to be white. And number 6 is going to be completely black. So everything in between is going to be different shades of grey, okay? So we know that number 1, we don't need to do anything with number 1. That one's white. Number 2, we're going to put the least amount of pressure on. So we're hardly even going to put any pressure on. And it needs to be 1 shade up from white, so super light grey. So I'm just turning my pencil on its side. And I'm just doing a really pale value, number 2. Okay? So that's number 2. So you might even hardly be able to see that. So number 3, we're going to start exactly the same as we did for number 2. We're going to put hardly any pressure on. So I'm doing my pencil on its side. I'm shading on the side, and I'm putting light as a feather pressure on for number 3. Okay. So now this is a values chart. So at the minute, these 2 shades are exactly the same. So we need number 3 to be a little bit darker than number 2. So I'm going to go over it a second time, exactly the same amount of pressure. I'm doing a second layer. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3. So can you see that these 2 tones and these 2 values are slightly different? Okay, so number 4 now needs to get even darker. So this time for number 4, I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on. So I'm going to match number 3. So it's not as light as number 2. It needs to be, the first step, remember, is to make it the same shade as number 3. So I'm putting about a medium pressure on here. Okay, so again, as before, number 3 and 4 now look the same amount of tonal pressure. So I need to do a second layer on my number 4 to make that darker. Okay, so I've made that even darker just by doing a second layer in the same pressure. Okay, now number 5, we need to match number 4 to start with. So that means I'm going to have to put on a little bit more pressure to match number 4. So the first step is making number 4 and number 5 look the same. Okay, so currently number 4 and number 5 look the same, but we're moving up to black, remember? So this time I need to do a second layer again on number 5 with the same amount of pressure. Okay, so we're nearly at black, but we can still go a little bit darker, okay? So now for this time, I'm not going to use the side of my pencil anymore. I'm actually going to come in and use the tip of my pencil. I'm going to press really hard, starting in the corner. And this is the darkest pressure. So I'm not using this side of my pencil anymore. I'm using the tip. So it's important to learn about the different, where you hold your pencil on the page, you get a different value of tone. So right now it's important to use the tip because I want to put on the most pressure. Whereas at number 2, I was just using the side. Okay, so we've got even darker. So that's a really nice way of exploring tone and tonality and different values. Okay, so we can see the big difference between tonal value 1 and tonal value 6. And when we're creating a drawing, we often need to include all of these tones and more. You know, this is just a 6 value chart, but so you can have, you know, a 9 or a 10 different value chart. Okay, so it's more about the difference between white and black and all of these different tones. So have a go with a pencil, have a go with any drawing material you can find around your house. You could even have a go with some coffee. So you could start with white and add different amounts of water. So you'd add less and less water as you get darker. Or you could have a go with a colouring crayon or a marker. There's lots of different ways at home for you to practice this. So I really hope you enjoy that one this week. I would love to see, as always, how you get on with that. And yeah, please tweet us your pictures or message us. Yeah, I hope you enjoy that one.